Your bank account is not your problem. Your identity is. You can learn every money strategy, every investment framework, every hustle tactic that exists, and still end up exactly where you started. Because the person holding the money doesn't believe they deserve it. The person making the decisions is still operating from a script written when they were 12 years old, watching their parents argue over bills. By the end of this, you'll understand why changing your financial situation without changing who you are is like trying to drive somewhere new while insisting on the same old roads. Think about the last time you got a raise, or closed a deal, or made more money than usual. Did it feel good? Sure. But did a part of you, a quiet, almost invisible part, feel uneasy, like it wasn't quite real, like it might disappear? That feeling has a name. It's your identity protecting itself. Here's what nobody tells you about money. It's not a math problem. It's an identity problem. Your identity is not who you think you are. It's who you've decided to be based on years of repeated experience, feedback, and survival. If you grew up hearing money doesn't grow on trees, you didn't just absorb a phrase, you absorbed a worldview, a rule, an operating system that now runs silently in the background of every financial decision you make, whispering that resources are scarce, that wealth is for other people, that wanting more is somehow greedy or naive. And here's what makes it dangerous. You can't see it from inside it. James Clear wrote about identity-based change in his work on habits, the idea that real transformation happens not when you change your actions, but when you change the story you tell about who you are. A person who says, "I'm trying to save money," will always be fighting themselves. A person who says, "I'm someone who builds wealth," makes different choices automatically. The behavior follows the belief, always. But knowing this isn't enough, because there's a gap between understanding a concept and actually crossing the line, and most people never cross it. Here's why. Your identity isn't just a belief, it's a comfort zone with teeth. Every time you've stayed comfortable, chosen the safe job, talked yourself out of the investment, undersold your work, or said, "I'm not really a business person," you are reinforcing a version of yourself. You are casting a vote for the old character, and that character has survival instincts. It does not want to be replaced. It will create anxiety, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and elaborate logical arguments for why staying small is actually the wise choice. Sarah Blakely had less than $5,000 in savings when she started Spanx. She was selling fax machines door to door. But before she had a product, before she had investors, before she had anything, she had already decided she was an entrepreneur. She wrote in her journal that she would invent a product and sell it herself. She didn't know what it was yet. The identity came first, the reality followed. That's not magic. That's sequence. Most people wait for the external evidence before they'll claim the identity. They say, "Once I'm successful, I'll think of myself as successful." But that's backwards. The brain doesn't work that way. You have to claim the identity first, act from it consistently, and then the evidence accumulates around it, not the other way around. Think about someone you know who always seems to land on their feet financially. They lose a job and find a better one. They start a business and it works. They invest and it grows. You might call them lucky. But spend 5 minutes listening to how they talk. They don't say, "I hope this works out." They say, "Here's what I'm building." Their language isn't wishful, it's declarative. That's not confidence for confidence's sake. That's an identity doing its job. Now here's the uncomfortable part. If you want that, something has to die. Not you, not your personality, your humor, your relationships, but the version of you that has been running the show financially. The one who plays it safe, who shrinks from negotiation, who says, "I'm not really good with money," who spends to feel something because building feels too uncertain. That version has to be retired. And retirement isn't painless. You have to sit with the grief of giving up a familiar story. That story kept you safe. It gave you an excuse. It made failure understandable and manageable. Of course it didn't work. People like me don't get rich. That sentence is a prison cell dressed as a philosophy. Howard Schultz grew up in a housing project in Brooklyn. His father broke his ankle on the job and lost everything. No insurance, no savings, no dignity. Schultz watched that, and he made a decision not just to be different, but to become someone different. When he joined a small coffee company called Starbucks, he didn't see a coffee shop. He saw what it could be. Not because he had the data, because he had already become the person who builds things at scale. That identity let him see what others couldn't. He wasn't lucky. He was already someone else before the opportunity arrived. This is the sequence nobody talks about. Opportunity doesn't create identity. Identity creates the ability to see and seize opportunity. The door was always there. But you have to become someone who believes they're allowed to walk through it. So how does the old identity actually die? Not through motivation, Not through vision boards, not through one powerful moment of inspiration that fades by Wednesday. It dies through repetition, small, consistent acts that don't match your old story. You negotiate the price when you used to accept it. You pitch your rate higher than feels comfortable. You open the brokerage account you've been avoiding for 3 years. You stop saying, "I can't afford that," and start asking, "How could I afford that?" Not because the words are magic, but because each act is a vote for a new character, and characters are built from votes, not declarations. The neuroscience backs this up. Dr. Joe Dispenza spent years studying how the brain forms identity through repeated thought patterns and behaviors. The brain literally builds neural pathways that reinforce your self-concept. Every time you act from your old financial identity, those pathways deepen. Every time you act from the new one, even imperfectly, even nervously, you're laying new tracks. It doesn't feel real at first. It feels like acting. That's exactly how it's supposed to feel. The gap between "this feels fake" and "this feels like me" is just repetition. And here's something most people never consider. The people you admire most, the ones who built something real, who broke out of what they were handed, they all describe a moment where they decided before they were ready, not when they felt confident, not when they had proof. Before, they stepped into a role that didn't fit yet, and wore it until it did. That discomfort you feel when you try to claim a bigger version of yourself, that's not a warning sign. That's the sensation of growth. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between danger and change, it just fires the same alarm. You have to learn to walk through that alarm without turning back, because the alternative is already familiar to you. Stay the same. Keep the old story, watch opportunities pass, and call it bad timing. Make slightly more money each year, but never actually change the fundamental dynamic. Retire with regret instead of results. You've done that version long enough to know how it ends. The identity you need to build isn't about arrogance. It's not about pretending you're someone you're not. It's about deciding, fully, finally, without the escape hatch of, "Well, maybe I'm just not that kind of person," that you are exactly the kind of person who builds wealth, who earns what they're worth, who makes decisions from abundance instead of fear. That decision is available to you right now, not after the next paycheck, not when you feel more ready. Right now, in this moment, with exactly what you have. You didn't survive everything you've survived to stay small. You didn't develop every skill, endure every setback, push through every doubt just to hand it all to the version of you that's afraid to grow. The old identity served you once. It kept you safe when safe was what you needed. But you don't need safe anymore. You need real. Starting right now, today, this moment, stop identifying with who you've been financially. Start acting, speaking, and deciding as the person you're becoming. Not perfectly, not without fear, but consistently, one vote at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time, until the person looking back at you in the mirror is someone you had to grow into. That person was always possible. You just had to be willing to let the old one go.